Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about building Howa 1500 actions and what steps I take to make them as precise and basically fully custom as you can, um, which is super important with your action being the heart of basically any rifle that you're building.
There's a couple different routes you can go for custom rifles. You can get custom actions such as like Defiance, Lone Peak Arms, things like that, or you can take a factory action and basically make it precise. Um, this rifle right here is a Howa 1500 that has had the action blueprinted. I have a Schillen prefit shouldered prefit barrel, and it's in the chassis, along with my optic. But the thing that made this a lot different from a factory Howa 1500 is the heart of the rifle, which is going to be the action. So we'll talk about what we did to make this action more precise than it was, which comes down to a blueprinting process. So truing up the face of the action, truing up the bolt lugs on the bolt, and then the interior bolt lug abutments inside the action. Um, this also has a tactical bolt knob, so the bolt knob was cut down and threaded, and now it has an enlarged bolt knob to make it easier to work the action. And then also the bolt face was bushed. And we'll talk about why we did these things. That's the goal of this video today. Like I said before, the heart of your action, or the heart of your rifle, is always going to be your action, right? You can interchange stocks, you can interchange barrels, you can swap optics, but the heart of where everything occurs is your action, right? If your action's out of whack, any barrel you put on it is going to be out of spec with how it attaches to the action. If the bolt lugs aren't aligned correctly and don't actually correctly lock into the bolt lug abutments, your bolt's going to be at an angle, and then the geometry for the way the cartridge sits is going to be out of whack, which is going to cause it to, you'll have issues. So some of the issues I had with a similar issue like that, with having the bolt lugs and bolt lug abutments basically not touching all the way, is firing basically standard pressure loads. I was getting a stiff bolt lift, which isn't normal. It's not correct. So blueprinting the action and truing up the bolt lugs along with the bolt lug abutments completely corrected that. Another issue with talking about the bolt.
As you can see, the bolt face on the right looks shiny and new with a small firing pinhole. That is the bolt that's been bushed. The bolt on the left has not had any work done to it yet. And the benefit of having the bolt face bushed is going to be that it puts our bolt face in spec, so it's completely true. And the main reason is it shrinks down the firing pinhole and also the firing pin. Now you might ask, why is this necessary? Commonly, Howa 1500 actions and Remington 700s have the exact same issue, but their firing pin holes are extremely large. So on the bolt that's already been bushed, the hole was approximately 80 thousandths, and the firing pin itself was 4 thousandths less than that hole, which is a pretty big gap. Having it bushed, it shrank the hole down to 60 thousandths, and the firing pin now is 2 thousandths smaller than that. I noticed a big increase with basically me seeing less pressure on my primers. Having an oversized firing pin leads to having basically primers that when you shoot them, part of the primer will actually push back into the bolt face, which can cause basically piercing primers. And I was having a large problem with that with this rifle. Again, that commonly plagues Howa 1500s and Remington 700s. So that's why it's important to fix the flaws, and this is one of the common flaws with the Howa 1500 bolt face.
Not expensive. I'd say it's a fairly inexpensive process if you just know how to, or know the things to do to correct some of the issues that these actions have. You can have a great action to be the heart of your precision rifle. I'd say actions. I have multiple of these rifles for Howa 1500s. That's why I choose to build my rifles off of Howas. I have four. Going on to my fourth. I have three. I'll be building a fourth for the video. I have a lot of spare parts for them, so I try to keep all my rifles basically to the same brand due to the fact that I can interchange barrels. So three of my actions are actually all trued up to the exact same spec to where they headspace the exact same. So I can take this is a shouldered pre-fit barrel. I can actually take, this is a variable shoulder pre-fit, so it has a Savage large shank barrel nut that basically you have to tighten when you properly headspace it. So I will insert headspace gauges, so a no-go gauge or a go gauge, whichever I'm using. So usually first you'll start off with a go gauge, enter it, close the action. This will be in a barrel vise. And when you get it to where the action will close on the go gauge, but will not close on the no-go gauge, then you will tighten down the barrel nut. Having a shouldered pre-fit is where it's been put on by a gunsmith, and there is no variable shoulder. You just screw the barrel on until it bottoms out into the action. So with having multiple my actions for the exact same spec, I can swap shouldered pre-fits in between actions, which makes it super helpful. So basically all my Howa 1500 actions are technically switch barrel rifles because I can either have pre-fits like this or I can have shouldered barrels. And that's why I choose to go with Howa 1500. Some other great actions that you can go with are the Ruger American, Howa 1500, which I'm using. The Tika actions are also fantastic, and those are actually held to a very high tolerance. They have some other issues that people don't like, but they are really good actions. Yeah, those are kind of the major three, besides Remingtons, right? Everyone and their granddad has a Remington 700, right? And you can either do shoulder pre-fits or you can do, the Remage barrels, were basically the same thing. It has a Savage small shank barrel nut. They're a little smaller diameter barrel. Yeah, they do great.
These were some examples on how you can build a cost-effective precision rifle.
If you guys want to know the specs on this specific rifle, we'll do another video on it. So stay tuned. I hope you guys follow, like the channel, and subscribe. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed the information, and if you guys end up using some of this information to help you with your next build, leave a comment, post some photos if you can, and tag us in it. We really appreciate you guys following along, and it's always great to share some information.